Tonight, once again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Brian Christopher Koberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Brian Koberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latest gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
It's like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Don't know why I don't hear myself. Oh, you know what? Give me 1 second, guys. I am back. There we go. Now you guys probably can hear me a lot better. I don't know. I was messing with, I guess, my mic, and I put it the other way. Sorry. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Welcome to the DT Show. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. You guys know what to do. We got breaking news in the Tepe murders. There has been an arrest made. It's been today's the 11th. It's been 11 days, 12 days since the murder. And I kind of told you guys if this arrest was going to happen with somebody that they knew, it was going to happen within a month. It's a little bit longer than I thought it would be for somebody. So I would have assumed would have been looked at right away, but it happens within less than 2 weeks. I think it's been 12 days since the murders. And so law enforcement go and they get their guy. We got all the information out there. We got the documents. We're going to break it down and kind of talk about what it is that we got right, what we got wrong, and what to expect. We're going to continue to follow this case as information drops and develops. A complaint has been produced, and so we're going to go into that, and it's going to give us a little bit of the details that they have, and maybe perhaps we'll be able to break down even more based on the information that we have. Now, kind of reflecting and going back, well, this is the accused murderer. This is going to be Michael David McKee, 39 years old. I believe he's out of Illinois. He's a doctor, surgeon, I believe. So another intelligent person goes out there and commits a heinous crime. This one seems kind of like an act of revenge, jealousy. I don't know if it's a crime of passion to the sense where, in a crime of passion, something is happening in the moment. Like, for instance, a husband comes home, finds his wife, or wife comes home, finds her husband, or some combination of the three or the two, come home and find their partner in bed with somebody else. And in that moment, out of passion, they do something without normally thinking and commit a heinous crime. I don't think that's going to be the case here. This seems much more calculated. I think that this is much more calculated, and I'm not surprised that the person is of some sort of intelligence. So let's break it down. Let's look at it, and let's get into it. So this is Michael David McKee. These are photos of him with Monique Tepe when they were married. I believe they were married for a couple of years back in 2015 to 2017. We're going to go through some of the paperwork that's in the court system as well, including and not limited to a recent filing that just occurred between these two young folks, or these individuals, and maybe perhaps a little bit more of an idea of what the motive may have been. Now, from this angle, and I know, from the camera, I had said this guy looks kind of tall. In the Discord, I'd asked my the members, I was like, hey, do you guys think he could be wearing one of those shoes that kind of make you a little bit taller? Could that be the reason why he was walking kind of funny? Could he be acting, or trying to hide a gait of some sort? Was it, an intentional act? And those things accompanied with, when you watch the video, he puts his head down right as he's crossing in front of the camera and then picks his head up as he's exiting. That told me this guy was aware of that camera. For him to have been aware of that camera and not be from the immediate area, that tells me that this guy had been in the area multiple times. And so my opinions and thoughts were that this was a calculated crime. And I still believe that. I think this guy, like I said, we're going to see evidence of that as it come out. Now, I thought he was a fairly tall dude. From this angle, he doesn't look that tall, but if you look at it from a different angle, I believe he's 6'1", so he's a little bit taller than, per se, Brian Koberger. Taller guy, and if he was wearing some sort of shoes of some sort to make him even taller. And here's another image. So there's a good possibility here. You can't see Monique's feet, but she could be wearing some high heels in this image, and which is going to make her even taller. And here's an image of them together, kind of not in formal clothing, so to speak. Yes, that's why it explains why the children were not touched. It really could. I don't know. Okay, let's continue. But yeah, I thought that the very first person that you're going to look at is going to be the exes. And I didn't think it would take very long for them to make an arrest or have information to make an arrest. Now, one of the clues, and I had Alina Smith from Crime Scene Collective on not too long ago, and we're talking about this case. And one of the things that I saw when he was walking down the alley, the alleged here, Michael McKee, and then when we were watching another YouTuber walk down the alley, there was another camera much closer, right on the person. And I said to Alina, I was like, that's weird that the angle or the video that they released to the public, they being law enforcement, was one of a wider span, one from a distance. If they had one much closer, to me, if they were trying to truly grasp the help of the public, they would have released the closer footage. And so to me, I was like, all right, well, maybe perhaps it didn't exist. Maybe perhaps it, wasn't working, didn't capture anything. There's a lot of things that could have occurred. But now that we kind of, have the power of hindsight and looking back with 2020 vision here, I think that video being released was more to perhaps appease, the public, give them some information, make them feel like they, like law enforcement are making some moves and progress in this case. Now, why it took so long are a couple of different reasons. One, it sounds like this person traveled, from Illinois to Ohio. And I believe he was arrested in Illinois. And so he crossed state lines. So I don't know, maybe there was a jurisdiction aspect to it. Maybe not. I don't think there's going to be one. If Brian Koberger didn't, if that wasn't the situation with him, I doubt it's going to be the situation with the defendant. And so maybe there was a jurisdiction. Maybe they needed to find him. It didn't seem like he was in hiding per se. I think they found him they were able to find him. So to me, it took a little bit of time, but maybe perhaps because of the state lines and things of that nature. And maybe they were waiting on some DNA to come back. They may have had their eye on this guy for a while. They didn't release the vehicle. And apparently there was a vehicle that he was traced to. Now, that was one of the things that I was telling everybody. I was like, hey, because a lot of people were looking at the doctor, the partner of Spencer Tepe, the doctor that was in Florida. I was like, these individuals that people are bringing up that we are aware of, it wouldn't be hard to figure out if their alibi is real or false. For the doctor that was in Florida, that's probably the easiest alibi and way to determine if this guy had left or traveled or whatever. The ex-husband, I wasn't sure about. And I told Alina, I was like, look, I think that there's a good possibility that it could be somebody close, as long as, they make an arrest within about 4 weeks. If it goes after the 4-week period, I'm starting to really think that maybe perhaps this is not necessarily something random, but maybe a Brian Koberger type situation. Now, one of the things that did bother me, and I probably should have brought it up before, but it makes sense now, and it's obvious in hindsight, that there was a camera across the street, police camera, and if this person did a lot of surveillance, and it was a Brian Koberger type of person. Don't necessarily believe that that would have been the house that they would have selected because of that. You know what I mean? So in the future, which I'm sure we're going to get, in every case, there's going to be a lot of people that think that the suspect is innocent, and all persons are innocent until proven guilty, and so is Mr. McKay or McKee. I'm not sure how he pronounces his name. He is innocent until proven guilty. However, I already know all the theories and all the people they're going to start blaming, still going to blame the doctor. I know that's going to still continue to happen, and all this other stuff. Um, to me, like I said, it's going to be easy. It was going to be easy to figure out whether or not somebody close to these individuals was the person that committed this crime. And it shouldn't take very long because that person, not only would they have had to have traveled and gotten into and out of their respected neighborhood, or not their respected neighborhood, the Tepe's respected neighborhood, but they also have to get in and out of their own place. And apparently this guy lived in a high-end area, and I'm sure we're going to see cameras of him leaving and returning, and it's going to be during that specific time frame. I wonder if he's going to leave his phone behind. I wonder if he did certain things to try to elude this investigation, or if he just drove out there. Now let's look at a few things real quick, and then we're going to read the complaint, and we'll go through with it. So this is from I believe. So this is the docket. Hold on. I was looking at this earlier. Maybe this isn't the one I was looking for. All right. So here's the thing that we found that was interesting. This is Monique's maiden name, Sabaturski. So Monique Sabaturski versus Michael D. McKay. And this is in the jurisdiction of Ohio Franklin County Courts. And this is a family marriage, dissolution, divorce. Now, I'm not a lawyer. Chloe, if you're in here, I'd love to get your opinion on some of this. But there was some recent movement and hearings as of the 25th of June on their divorce. Okay, so here was the financial description, refund, deposit, fees, court costs. And this was back in 2017. So it says here, auto appear pro se, name Monique Sabaturski, plaintiff defendant. And then I think over here it says his name somewhere else as well. But in 2025, it says all original hearing notice, date, courtroom, time, courtroom, 9 a.m. Don't know what the hearing was for. Let's see. The next one it says original copy hearing notice filed. It says here, name Michael D. McKee. And then there was a hearing on the 16th and the 18th of June. Oh man, here but don't do divorces. Yeah, I don't know what could have come up so many years later. In June of 2025, that would have required some sort of hearing. I don't know. I know they didn't have any kids, so I'm not sure this is like some sort of don't know. It's just case type, marriage, dissolution, or divorce. And they had a recent hearing in 2025. If anybody has any idea, please let me know in the comment section. It looks like it says custody, which is of, where does it say that? Courtroom, location, magistrate, Columbus. It says action has been stricken. She got access to assets. So is he the guy in the alley? It looks like that's going to be the case, that this was the guy in the alley. Coincidentally, he bought his condo in July, so maybe it's related to their credit. Interesting. So there's something that happened here recently. I have no idea. But if it was some sort of custody issue, they didn't have any kids. I mean, I know there was a golden doodle. They had a dog. I don't know how old the dog was. Their divorce was back in 2017. Dog would have been pretty old, yeah, for a dog at this point. And I think the golden doodle didn't look very old to me. The dog that I've seen in the videos and stuff like that. I could be wrong. Could be completely wrong. Third one says listed domestic trial custody. Okay. Right here, cust. I see what you're saying. Some sort of custody. I wonder if there was like maybe perhaps like a wedding ring or engagement ring or something of that nature that he wanted back and he lost or something of that nature. Yeah, it is odd that they don't have any kids. And I was wondering, do you think it could be like what I was saying there, Chloe? Like, could it be like an engagement ring or a wedding ring that he had bought? She bought her own rings. Well, then that shouldn't be it. I wonder if they bought something together, maybe a place, a house, if there was some sort of financial gain for this, like, it's weird. It's weird, but maybe he kept the rings and she was trying to get them back. I don't know. I have no idea. Custody of the dog, maybe. That'd be crazy. I mean, this whole situation is crazy, no matter what the reasoning is. But it is insane. It is insane. All right, so let's look at the complaint. Let's bring that up real quick. So this is the Franklin County Municipal Court complaint. Complaint duly sworn, being duly sworn, states that the above named defendant at Franklin County, Columbus, Ohio, on or about the 30th day of December 2025, did knowingly cause the death of another, to wit, Monique Francis Tepe, by means of shooting her with a firearm in violation of Section 2903.02a, unclassified degree complaint. And I'm sure this is going to be because it's like an ex-wife, a domestic violence type of enhancement to it. I wonder if this is going to qualify for the DP. I wonder if it is. You know what I'm saying? How long after her divorce did she meet her now husband? Maybe infidelity, and cheating, or that that she felt like she left him for another man. I know that they got divorced like in 2017, and the marriage wasn't until 2020. They got married in their home, right? So, and he's a dentist, and so he was probably coming into his practice, getting married in the home. They probably decided to spend the money on the down payment of a house instead of a wedding. So I'm going to assume that they had gotten probably together relatively maybe a year or two prior to that. So 2018. So about, I would assume, I mean, it could have been relatively close. They could have been together for a while. My assumption is probably somewhere around 2018, 2019 is when they met. I feel like if they'd been together a while, maybe perhaps there would be a wedding somewhere else and the purchase of a home as well. And so the fact that all that happened together at the same time leads me to believe that to be the case. And also, I think there was like a young child probably on the way. I mean, I think he was 4 years old when this happened. They were just shy of their, 5th anniversary. So she may, could have sped things along a little bit quicker in those scenarios. But it does sound like it was at least a few years after their breakup, and plenty of time for this guy to have moved on. Plenty of time from this guy to have moved on. Not necessarily saying that it would have been okay for anything like this to have happened if he like it was a one day or towards 100, but I don't think you can give this guy the benefit of the doubt of crime of passion, so to speak, by saying, oh, you know what, let's not enhance this crime, let's drop it down a degree, because that's what happens when you have like crime of passion. Well, at least here in Texas. In Texas, you have a crime of passion, it'll take a felony, like a murder 1 to a murder 2, right? It drops it down, one step. I don't think that that's the case here. This guy's had plenty of time to get over it for there to be some sort of downplay or dropping of the level of the charges, in my opinion. And so I think it's a little bit different here. All right, let's continue this. It goes on to say, so here's the arrest warrant. This is where they got the judge to sign off on it. Okay. And this is the complaint where it says knowingly caused the death of another, Spencer Lewis Tepe, by means of shooting with a firearm. Here's the probable cause affidavit. And Russ Weiner is the officer who is the detective that made the arrest and got the warrant. And it goes on to say, on December 30th, 2025 at 9:57 a.m., Columbus Police patrol officers were dispatched to the 1411 North 4th Street on a check on well-being of a Dr. Spencer Tepe who had not shown up for work. Officers arrived and found Dr. Tepe and his wife, Monique Tepe, deceased inside, suffering from gunshot wounds. 2 minor children were found inside of the home unharmed. Columbus Fire Medic number 7 responded and pronounced both victims deceased at 10:11 a.m. Columbus Police Homicide Unit Team 2 was responded that and initiated an investigation. During the subsequent investigation, detectives were able to identify a suspect through the neighborhood video surveillance. This suspect was tracked to a vehicle which arrived just prior to the homicides and left shortly after the homicides. Detectives were able to identify the vehicle further and link it to Michael McKee. Detectives located the vehicle in Rockford, Illinois, and found evidence of McKee in possession of the vehicle prior to and after the homicides. And I guess that's enough. They went and arrested him. So the evidence that they probably found him in connection to the vehicle prior to and after the homicides. Remember Aaron Hernandez? And Aaron Hernandez he used to be a football player. He ended up taking the life of a couple of different people, but he ended up getting caught for one of his former teammates, and he ended up shooting him. And he was on camera before and after the murders, leaving and coming and going. That's exactly what I'm talking about when I say that if you have your suspect in mind, they have to leave, they have to travel, they have to get there, they got to come back. Kind of like in the Brian Koberger case, they caught him leaving and coming back out of Pullman. In this scenario here, they most likely have Mr. McKee leaving that night and then returning. And that time frame in which he leaves gives, and there's probably some drive testing that have gone on, but it's probably enough time for him to have driven across from Rockford, Illinois, back over to Columbus, Ohio, to the Tepe residence, commit the crime, park wherever it is that he parked, walk the distance that he walked. He had to have, because we saw him walking in the alley. He didn't pull up to the back of the house. He was walking through the alley and then left. Now, one interesting thing that I remember and recall was that there was a 911 call that occurred about 11 days prior to the Tepe murders. And I'm curious if he had gone out there and did some sort of like dry run, scared somebody. So that way, in the future, when this occurs, people will start looking in that direction, try to locate somebody who maybe was trying to just break into the houses in the neighborhood, and that this was just another random situation, which again, if that is the case, points to a lot of premeditation here. And in my opinion, there's a tremendous amount. The mere fact that the guy had to travel from Illinois all the way to Columbus, Ohio and back, tells me that there's enough evidence there of premeditation to a severe degree. But like I said, I think that's what we're going to end up finding out. And when, again, his vehicle caught him. Some people are going to say, why would he have taken his own car? I don't know. Whose car would he have taken? If he would have rented out a vehicle, there's paperwork and there's a trail behind that. And I'm sure law enforcement were probably trying to figure out if there was any vehicles in the area that were rented out and things like that. Now, him coming from Illinois would have made things a little bit more difficult, had he rented a vehicle and then changed his plates and things of that nature. But again, law enforcement are going to look at the X's right away. This is probably one of the first persons that they looked into, just because you're going to do a victimology. You're going to look at both X's. You're going to look at any other X's that they may have had. And anybody who may have had some sort of confrontation, if they had any patients that had any issues with them, etc. But the first persons you're going to look at are the ones that are close by. And the first people you look at are the X's. And so this guy would have been, the first person that you would have wanted to look at. And as soon as, I'm sure when they went and talked to him, they probably spoke to him before, hey, your ex-wife has passed away. What were you doing that night? Blah, 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 blah. Before they had any evidence, just to kind of, as a genuine witness, to cross him out as a potential suspect. And then they probably got some video that came in that pointed to him, made things a little bit different. And so hit the like button, guys. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet. You guys know what to do. So interesting stuff here. But again, I think this is a very calculated crime, not to the degree that maybe perhaps like Bryan Kohberger was, but I do think that there was some planning here. The fact that this guy went through the backyard, put his head down when he was walking. In fact, let's pull that up so we can watch that. I want to pull that up and show you guys what I'm referring to when he's walking. There it is. And again, this probably, the 911 call that people were looking at the neighbor. Now, not the neighbor, that somebody had called in and they were possibly drunk when we listened to. I told you guys, probably didn't mean much to this case, even if it was Monique and her and Spencer had an issue of some sort, that night. If it was a situation where one of them took the lives of the other and then took their own, then I'd say, maybe perhaps that 911 call probably has a lot to do with this case. But that was the case, and so I didn't feel like it was going to make a difference. Let's see. Let me make this. There you go. All right. So look, this guy's going to immediately start to look down as he's walking by. So he's looking down, hands in his pocket. He goes around the vehicle. Look at how tall he is compared to the back end of that trunk, though. I still think that maybe perhaps he's wearing some sort of like insert maybe in his shoes that make him look taller than what he is. Maybe the guy has like plantar fasciitis or something of that nature, and he has to wear like an insole in his shoe, and it makes him taller than what he is. But this guy seems, I would have thought 6'3", 6'2", but 6'1", I mean, it's not too far off. It's not too far off. But I also did say the angle of the camera possibly would make the person look a little bit taller because of the angle of the camera, but not by much. I don't think it was going to be a tremendous amount. It's pretty consistent as he's walking by. And one of the things I noticed, especially as he's stepping right here, the way his foot is pointing upward, some people were saying maybe he's trying to avoid, footprints. I don't think so. The way he's walking, he's going to be putting down the best footprint you can put, because you're stepping at the very bottom end of the heel and stepping all the way through. It's literally laying the entire footprint down. So, could he have been, trying not to walk on ice or those type of things? Possible, but to me, I felt like this guy was trying to hide a gait, or maybe even manipulate one, make somebody believe that he was somebody else, and or not to look in his direction. Like, oh, I don't walk that way. That's someone else. And if that ends up being the case, if he's manipulating his walk by pointing his feet upward as he's walking down the street, that kind of points to a lot of premeditation, as I was mentioning before. And I mean, I think there was even a part where, I don't have it here, where it looked like he was even a little bit pigeon-toed. We were watching that. And as you can see, as he's walking, gets out of screen, out of camera, he's going to dip his head up. Right there. There. I mean, I know it's widened out. Let me remove the QR code real quick so I can show you guys. So I know it's kind of hard to see, but his head is now facing directly. So his head goes down as he's passing by all the cameras and then comes up. So to me, I mean, I struggle with that not being premeditation. I really do. Let's see. There was a few more things I wanted to show you guys as well about his medical degree and stuff. Because I know that there was some stuff that was, let me just pull everything up. Give me 1 second. I know he had something expired also this year. And I wonder if that had anything to do with anything. So this is his Nevada State Board medical examiners. This is his license number. Medical doctor license is expired. And it expired in June 30th, 2025. So don't know why his license expired in June of 2025, but I find it a little odd. This is the Illinois Department of Financial and Provision Regulation. He has an active license in Illinois through, well, at least he did, through July of 2026. And he's a licensed physician and surgeon, and this is out of the Illinois Department of Financial Professional Regulation. Dr. Michael McKee. This is his Ohio license, which is inactive. It's been inactive for some time. So that's the his medical license stuff. You know, for those that are interested in that type of thing, we were able to pull that up. Thank you for the the viewer that sent me that. So in the end, what do we think, guys? What are we thinking? You know, I think that something to me may have happened here recently. I don't know if this guy went through another breakup, if he had an issue at work, if he lost his license went expired in one location. I don't know if that had any issues with anything else, and that caused to some sort of deterioration of his mind, and he'd go crazy and all this other crap. Possibly, I think that there was recent hearing activity had to do with the custody of something that occurred in June. So it's not so much that they got divorced in 2017. It's almost 9 years later, and then these murders occur. To me, I wonder how long he's been stalking her and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy's had like this issue with her and following her, and she may not even have known. I just feel so bad for those little kids too. The 4-year-old and 1-year-old, and now have to live without their parents, and it's just a sad case all around. But all in all, I think that this guy was calculated. I think he was. I think he planned this. I think he planned it. Let me know in the comment section. You have any questions, comments? Put a couple of stars so that I know that you're talking to me, and let me know. Apparently, McKee was involved in a malpractice lawsuit. I heard about something like that he was involved in that as well. Maybe he was getting sued. So he may have got divorced, and then other issues occur, and then now the lawsuit and all this other stuff. And maybe he just kind of blames everything back onto the divorce, which is completely wrong. Every decision that this guy's made has been on his own, and he's responsible for his own choices and actions. And so, like I said, it sounds like we're going to probably find out that some stuff happened in this guy's life, kind of like Brian Koberger, where he was losing his job as a WSU teacher assistant, things of that nature. I think that hearing in June is going to be is going to play a pivotal role in what going to like a pivotal role in how into this case and why maybe perhaps some idea of why in his mind he had the motive to do this. Crazy stuff. Who said that I saw that analytics of the wedding video spike in December. So with the wedding video, could that have been him? It could have. It really could have. But they were getting close to their 5th year anniversary. So, I don't know if one of them was putting something together and was using footage from that video or things of that nature. Or somebody was putting something together for them, and was using that video. I think that if, Cellbrite, if he has his phone still, Cellbrite's going to go through it. And if it was him, that's going to be huge evidence against him. Now that I think about it, I still believe this is a calculated, thing. I'm pretty sure he would be watching it. I'm pretty sure he would be. But again, I just caution it because the 5th year anniversary was just around the corner. And I don't know if anybody was doing something for that, but I would not be surprised if he was. You can't rule it out. You can't rule it out until Cellbrite goes in there and figures that out. Not to be rude, but he looks like yeah, him and Brian Koberger have these blockheads. It's weird. Definitely planned. Roid rage. I don't think this is rage to that extent. Because if he was raging, losing control like that, I don't think he's parking down the street and walking. That's why I said this feels more calculated. I think this guy was trying to do things that would make law enforcement not look in his direction, whether that's walk funny, possibly wearing inserts in his shoes to make him look taller, those type of things. I wouldn't be surprised if he left his phone at home, something of that nature. Is this legal on YouTube? Is what legal on YouTube? Do you think he was led into the house by Spencer? I do not. I think the fact that Spencer was, Spencer's body and Monique's body were both found in the bedroom and the second floor, tells me that I feel like this guy snuck into the house. And one of my questions was when I spoke with Elena is, and I'm going to get Dr. Vona on. I'm going to see if she'll join us a little bit later on this week. Our local psychologist, our friendly psychologist that comes on our show. In those moments with persons who are like focused like this on a single person and whatnot, if they walked into a bedroom and they had 2 people in there, and the same question could be asked and said for, like, for instance, the Brian Koberger case. Like if you're the assailant, and which person would they go for first? To me, I thought in this scenario they probably would have gone for the target. One single shot to the chest. I wouldn't be surprised if that occurred while she was asleep. I think Spencer wakes up, gets up, goes towards him, and he has to shoot him a couple of times because he's coming at him. And so I don't know that to be the case, but I think if that's just my speculation at this point, based on the information, I think that's most likely the way it went down. I think he walked in and went straight to their bedroom, which also says something about him, potentially being familiar with the layout, watching them, things of that nature. Again, canvassing, very premeditated, calculated type of crime. But I don't think anybody let him in the house. I think that if somebody did let him in the house, I don't know. I have him going through the back. I don't think anybody's going to let somebody in through the backyard. And that's because he was seen in the alley walking up in the back area. And from what I understand, the individuals who went and found the bodies, the friends, made entry through the backyard. And so, through the back door. So I would speculate to believe that the back door was left unlocked. Maybe his life was going down the crapper for a while. That's what I'm thinking too. I think it was, and I think he may have blamed her. I already had remarried not long after the divorce. I'd have to look into that. I'm not too familiar with that. That's a possibility, but I don't know. If he knocked on the front door, he would have been arrested days ago, as there is a Ring camera. Yeah, I mean, I think that's possible. But they got, like I said, I thought that they would have caught this guy fairly quickly, like within days. I didn't think it was going to take 2 weeks or almost 2 weeks, but it's not really been that long, right? It's been, what's today? I don't even know what today is. Today's like the 11th or what? The 10th. So it's been what, 11, 12 days? It happened on the 30th. So it's not really a long time in an investigation. So they work pretty quickly. I just assume that when you have a scenario when it's somebody this close, it's usually like 2 to 3 days, and then there's an arrest unless they got to find the guy. But what they could have been waiting on, is maybe perhaps DNA. Maybe they were casing him, watching him, picked up some trash. And like I said, they pick up some shell casings from the house. If he didn't think about, cleaning those before and, putting them in the magazine, I would assume that there's a good possibility that there's some DNA on there. Maybe perhaps, like I said, I said this, when I was talking with Elena, I was like, there's a good possibility that the person hasn't committed a crime yet. If they have DNA, but the guy's never, been arrested or convicted of anything and hasn't had their DNA on file, there's a good possibility that they're just waiting for whether it's IgG or to identify a potential person of interest to go out there and surreptitiously or secretly take an item from that person to DNA test against whatever DNA that they may have. And I think that there's a good possibility that's what we were waiting on. Developing an STR profile isn't necessarily something that happens overnight. I think it's not something that takes too long, but they do have to create the STR profile. Maybe perhaps they had to, rush things and check DNA. I don't know how long it takes, but I think that there's a possibility here that may have been the situation. Plus, it sounds like based on the arrest complaint, that they're probably going to have some footage of him leaving and coming, the coming and going of his property. And I'm sure that's going to require a warrant. Now, how long that's going to take to get or obtain, to me, I don't think it's going to take very long. As a person who has filed for warrants before in the past, it's taken me a couple of hours if I have the right stuff and information. But if you're having to develop some things and you're waiting on other things to come in, like perhaps maybe, I don't know, advanced timing records on his phone, those type of things, because everything takes steps, right? You got to do one thing first, then the other. And so maybe they got to get the advanced call time records on his phone to determine if his phone was in the area. And then once that happens, or they can determine that his phone was turned off or whatever the case may be, maybe then they can use that information then to go get a warrant for his phone and things of that nature. And so maybe perhaps they were just waiting on a few things to come in. But again, 11 days is not a long time to make an arrest. So I'm fairly positive that they got the right guy. It's going to, like I said, for him to have committed this crime, he would have had to have, and also to have traveled the distance that he left. There's going to be a lot of concrete evidence there. And this isn't a crime that went too terribly long, where video surveillance and things of that nature are going to be recorded over. As I said, the affidavit does make it seem like they have video of him going and coming back, before and after the murders. All right, let's see. I'll answer a few more questions, guys. We'll do this for another 5 minutes. How difficult is it to hack or bypass a digital lock? Good question, Afton. I mean, it may not be that difficult. This guy was married to her, so maybe there was like a number that she used common. It was like her PIN number for everything, and he was familiar with it. Maybe that's what it was. But when you look at their backyard, there isn't a fence to get in necessarily. So the person had to have jumped the fence. That's the first thing. Second, I strongly suspect that could give somebody a false sense of security, knowing that somebody can't just enter into your property, that they're going to go into your backyard and come out or enter through your back door. Unfortunately, that may have been the reason they left it unlocked. Maybe they forgot. I don't know, but I think that the back door was unlocked. Let's see. I think I got an image of the back door. Let me pull it up real quick. I'm going to send it to myself. I know Axeman was sharing it earlier in the, let's see. I'm going to pull this up. Give me a second. Everybody in the Discord. Y'all are funny. Hey guys, if you want to be part of the Discord, you got to join. Hit the join button, and you can be part of the conversation there with the Discord. We talk about this case and so many other cases. Yeah, you won't be disappointed. All right. So give me a second. I'm almost done. I'm just going to send this to myself. I probably need to do that whole Apple thing, right, where I can airdrop and probably take a lot quicker. All right, let me remove this. Give me a second, guys. So I have their backyard here. Almost done. So there's a couple of things that a person could do. You know, one, I mean, it does look like there's a pretty decent lock there. But no sign of forced entry. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. You know, maybe they went through if this window was unlocked. But I think there's a good possibility that this door was unlocked. But no sign of forced entry. You know, and if he would have manipulated, you know, and again, law enforcement said this. They didn't write this down in a court in a document. It wasn't in his complaint that there was no forced entry. They may have been saying that, keeping that close to the vest of what they know, just so in case somebody came forward and maybe perhaps confessed to it, and they said, all right, well, how did you get in the house? And they said, oh, we went through the back door, and they knew that it was through this window down here. Then that could be a reason. But it did sound like, based on the dispatch audio from when they were going into the house, it did appear to me that it sounded like the persons that found the bodies, the friends, went in through the back door. Now, I believe there's a fence on the left side of the house as well. But crazy. Just walked right in. Let's see. I look at things in a noob conspiracy way. How do I look at? I don't understand that. Let's see. I said in the chat today, I've never seen a more square-headed person in my life. Yeah, it's he's really there. Seems he didn't know how to move on after 5 years. There's a good possibility of that. And if that's the case, I guarantee you this guy's probably been stalking them and following them throughout this entire time, you know, which is scary to think that they may have had a stalker and not known this for years. Now, the fact that there was recent activity in this court hearing, I think that's probably going to lean more towards something. But I think there's a possibility. Ohio PD had to deal with the New Year's holiday lag to get phone company and lab data. Oh, you know what? That's true too. I didn't really think about it. Thank you, X-Men. There was the whole New Year's stuff that was going on. And so that probably prevented things, you know, court system, judges getting involved with those type of things. I completely forgot there was a holiday in between all this. So you're absolutely right there, X-Man. Thank you for that information. A few days ago, I mentioned a baby monitor or a nanny cam in the house would have picked him up during the crime. It would have. I don't know if those are like, if they had one that was recording all the time, that records to the cloud and stuff like that, then that's probably going to be used against them. But yeah, there'd be some evidence there, at least what you can hear. Why would he be that dumb and leave casings? Probably couldn't find them. You know, there's a couple of things that were going on. It's dark. It's not like, you know, you fire a couple of shots, not just one, but a few. You're probably anticipating somebody heard it. So if you turn on the light, people are going to call the cops, say, hey, there's a light on across the store. We heard gunshots from this area where this light is on. You know what I mean? So he was probably rushed, and he probably couldn't find him in the dark. And he took off probably at a rapid pace. Probably the kids started crying. Wouldn't be surprised. And so a couple of different reasons, you know. And he may have tried to find them and just couldn't find all of them. You know, but I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, these poor kids. Yes, please hit the like button. Hit the like button, guys. No weapon. Have they found a weapon yet? I mean, he traveled pretty far away, so that weapon could be anywhere in between this house and there. You know, hopefully they'll find it. Hopefully they'll find it. Might have known about the baby monitors. He may have. It was clear from the beginning that this is a targeted attack by someone that knew this was a crime of passion. I don't know about the crime of passion aspect, because again, 5 years later, that's a crime of passion is when you like come across somebody who's been like, you know, your loved one is actively cheating on you at that moment. This isn't crime of passion. This is premeditated. Big difference. Crime of passion has a lesser offense in most places, like in Texas. Crime of passion will take a first-degree felony murder to a second-degree felony murder. And I don't think that's the case here. I don't think this is the case at all. I think this is a premeditated, calculated murder. This guy drove a long distance away to get there. He had a lot of time to think about it. You know, it wasn't a scenario that he's just snapped in the moment. I don't think so. I don't believe that at all. This seems very premeditated. And I think we're going to have some evidence to believe that this was premeditated. Now, most people will end up, you know, when their lives are taken, it's usually by or at the hands of somebody they know. So that's not too surprising to me. And I didn't consider a few things. One of the things I didn't consider was the holidays. X-Men brought that up. But, you know, I thought, you know, for sure, if it was like the ex-boyfriend or the ex-husband in the scenario, that it probably wouldn't have taken very many days to figure that out and get an arrest warrant, in which it really didn't. It took them 11. So it's not a lot of time, but I would have anticipated it happening a little bit sooner. But I did say that they may be waiting on certain things to come in. And so I said, you know, I get 4 weeks. You know, if law enforcement doesn't make an arrest within 4 weeks of the crime happening, that this most likely was somebody outside of the inner circle. If it happens, you know, within 4 weeks, it's most likely somebody that people close to the victims are going to recognize. And sure enough, that ended up being the case. How did they use to determine the time of 3:52 a.m.? I don't know. Did they say 3:52 a.m.? Let me pull that up real quick. I don't recall them saying 3:52. I could be very much wrong, though. I just don't recall that. All right. It just says here the suspect was trapped to a vehicle prior and left shortly after the homicides. Doesn't necessarily say 3:52 a.m. though. Let me know where you got 3:52 a.m. It's very much possible it was 3:52 a.m. That's within the time frame that they are looking for somebody. So it's very much possible it could have been then. I just haven't seen that time frame. So if you can let me know where you got that from, I'd appreciate it. Let's see. Janie comes in saying, when he had been covered in blood spray walking away inside of a car, would have blood from the crime scene? Not necessarily. It depends on how close he was. You know, gunshot residue on his person, on his hands, him going into his vehicle and those type of things and spreading gunshot residue around. Yeah, 100%. I do think that that's a good possibility. But, I mean, if he was point blank range, yeah. But if he stood like at the foot of the bed and like pointed upwards towards, Monique, and was about, 6-7 feet away from where the shot was, and obviously the bullet is traveling in a different direction, and so and it's not necessarily straight, it's kind of angled. If she's laying down and he's standing at the foot of the bed, um I don't think he would get any blood on him, to be honest with you. Not very much at all. With gunshot residue, different story, especially on his hands and on his arms and on his gloves, if he was wearing some. Right. The back door isn't digital. Good. I couldn't tell. Thank you, Axman, for pointing that out. Let's see. They had 2 small kids. It was Christmas, which is really hectic time for parents. They left it unlocked. That's a good possibility as well. It's a good possibility that they just left it unlocked. How's it going? Beyond the Whispers. Good to see you. Good night. Key's phone will give us everything we need to know if he took it with him. If he took it with him, that'll help. But yes, also to any pre-planning, and also if he's been to that area beforehand, right? So like if he had been there casing out the area, he may not have turned off his phone. He may have kept it, kind of like what they anticipated with Brian Koberger. Now, what Brian Koberger ended up doing is he ended up factory resetting and doing a bunch of different things to his phone, which I mean, this guy's a doctor, so I'm assuming he doesn't have a lot of time on his hand. And so I don't know how much, well, I would say I don't know how much, investigating he's looking into like true crime stuff, right? Because one of the things, like if you're following, for instance, true crime, and you're following the Brian Koberger case where you did, I mean, that taught us a lot. That taught us a lot on how law enforcement tracked somebody, how they got him, and how Brian Koberger was able to get away with certain things by factory resetting his phone and doing these things back and forth. Could this person have somehow researched something like that up? And Brian Koberger and his tactics that recently occurred. Because that's the other thing too, right? Like I covered a couple of different cases. One of them is the Jack and Lily Sullivan case, disappearance out of Nova Scotia, Canada. And in that case, a lot of people looking at the father and the mother who have passed lie detector tests, and they say, well, Daniel Martel, he passed the lie detector test. So did Ted Bundy. And I'm like, well, Ted Bundy took one in the 70s. So technology has changed, and a lot of things have happened since then. That have made them a little bit more accurate than they were back in the day. And plus, this guy has cooperated a lot more than I had seen anybody else cooperate and not get arrested if they were a suspect. And so, just kind of where that is on that case. But in this scenario, did he know to leave his phone behind? Did he know to turn it off? Did he know to factory reset it? Is that something that he researched? Now, the lack of evidence is evidence, and it burned Brian Koberger as well. Having those holes in his phone would have been huge evidence against him, circumstantial, albeit, but very huge, that he was deleting evidence. So that way, when law enforcement was expected to find evidence, or whether you should have found evidence, they couldn't because it was deleted, those type of things. And it made no sense for there to be no activity during that time. Some of that time was during finals and things of that nature. While he was at a teaching assistant at WSU. So very much so, obviously that he was doing some extensive cleaning of his computer and phone. And so I wonder if this guy did any searching of some sort and did something similar. This is an intelligent guy. He's a doctor. So I wouldn't put it past somebody to try to cover their tracks by some means of, especially if they went through any means of planning for this, if they did any casing, any of those type of things, then I would anticipate that the planning doesn't stop at the murders, right? They continue to plan other things. And so let's see. Good question though. Yeah, but I do think we're going to find quite a bit from his phone when it does come out. Ooh, this is a good question. Do I believe that Spencer's coworkers were aware of something going on with the ex? I don't know. I don't think so. Mainly because those were Spencer's coworkers, and maybe perhaps Monique's friends and family might be aware of something. I think she may be, speaking about that. I don't know if Spencer would talk about, you know, ex family, his wife's ex to other people if they were having some issues and stuff. So I don't know, but it could be. I mean, maybe that's why one of the reasons they were so quick to ask for the welfare check. Maybe they were aware of some, weird activity, things of that nature. Absolutely, it was premeditated, and he didn't snap. When I say crime of passion, I meant emotion behind it. Just guys, gotcha, not just the hit. Good. Understood. Page 1 or 2 has the time. All right, let me go see. Okay, it says complainant on December 30th, 2025. Okay, with a firearm. Violation, arrest warrant. Okay. Oh, right here. You're right. Okay, capital charge murder, offense, 3:52 a.m. So, what could they have? Well, we know they got video from down the street. I wonder if there's audio to that video. Or I wonder if there's audio to any of the video and if you can hear the gunshots. That could give them a pretty accurate amount of time there. But 3:52 a.m., that's awfully close to like when Brian Koberger committed his crime. Like I said, him changing his gait, possibly, I don't know. I haven't seen him walking. If anybody has any video of this guy walking, I'd like to see if that's just his natural walk, natural gait. It could be, but if it's not, if it's just he's trying to hide something, that would mean to me a lot of premeditation behind it. Wonder if he researched anything else that maybe, 3:52 a.m. That's when people are dead asleep. So it's not like that would be a time where somebody would want to. And to me, given that time of 3:52 a.m., it tells you a little bit more that this is more calculated. If it was something that was less calculated, less premeditated, it would have happened in the moment that he lost control. Like, whether it be he got news about the hearing and whatever. I don't know what happened with that hearing, but with whatever happened with that hearing, lost it, went straight over there, drove up and did something that I would say, okay, maybe perhaps it's not so premeditated, but 3:52 a.m. to go out there at that time when folks are asleep, like at their deepest sleep, that also tells me some major planning involved, that it was specifically planned at that time for this case. But thank you, Gene Williams, for pointing that out. I hadn't seen that. Thank you. I have heard the family had to assist her in leaving him, doing this while he was at work. She was clearly had some fear of him or of his actions. I have not heard that. But if that is true, then that does kind of tell you a little bit about the relationship there and her fear of leaving him. But I don't know if that's true or not. No idea. No idea whatsoever. Thank you. I appreciate that. I heard the friends used a neighbor's ladder, either the bedroom window locked. I don't know. I think that I saw something that indicated that dispatch had talked about them going through the back door. Now, they could have gone through the window or saw something, but it sounded like they were already in the house when law enforcement arrived, that they were downstairs in towards the back where the back door was. 352 is in the document. Gotcha. Yes, we found it. Thank you, guys. Do we know for a fact that their dog was unharmed? I don't know that for a fact. I do not know that. All right, guys. Well, a lot of interesting stuff. When more information comes out, we're going to break it down. Hopefully they don't keep things too hush hush and they keep things a little bit open so we can break it down, so we can keep the truth out there. Like I said, I can already sense that there's going to be a lot of people that think that law enforcement didn't get it right, that it was the doctor, it was this or was that, it was his girlfriend, or it was something to do with youth, the Big Brother program. There's those theories aren't just going to obviously and unfortunately die. Those are going to live on, and we're going to have to go up against those with evidence and facts. And so like, comment, subscribe, because we're going to continue following this through. And as more information comes out and breaks down, we're going to break it down and try to find the truth behind it. I think they got their guy. I mean, like I said, it would not be very difficult to prove if it's somebody close. There should be ample amount of evidence against this guy, so if he did it, we're going to find out a lot of evidence. If he didn't, then, we'll see. We'll see what evidence they have. But hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. I'll see you guys probably tomorrow. Because then I'll be gone for Monday. You won't see me on Monday. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, everybody. Bye.